Welcome to the 8th grade social studies test review. This is the 7-minute mastery series, and today we're going to be talking about causes of the revolution. Okay, first and foremost, the French and Indian War. It wasn't between the French and the Indians, it was between the British and the French. The British and the French fought over the Ohio River Valley land west of the Appalachian Mountains, you can see on the map here, and the British won this war, gaining all the land of the Midwest from the French. The British borrowed lots of money to battle in this war. Yes, they won, but they were deeply in debt after the war. When the war ended, King George III issued the Proclamation of 1763. This stated that no colonists could go west of the Appalachian Mountains. As you can imagine, this did not sit well with the colonists who wanted to continue to grow their country west, or their colonies west, that is. So British war debt equals taxes on colonists, plain and simple. Not only did the Proclamation of 1763 upset the colonists who wanted to continue moving west, but it infuriated those who already were living there and were forced to move east of that proclamation line. In order to pay back war debt, the British began to tax the colonists. The first tax was the Sugar Act in 1764. Then you have the Stamp Act, 1765. The Stamp Act was a tax on all printed paper products. That could be legal documents all the way down to something as simple as playing cards. So almost anything they could purchase that was a paper product that had anything printed on it was taxed. Colonial boycotts of British taxed goods began as a protest against these taxes. They stopped buying these products. This was the beginning processes of the uniting colonists against the British. Think about it. All these colonists were unique and separate and individual in their different colonies, but they were all taxed equally here. So now they began to unite in their revolt, their boycotting, and their resistance to what the British were doing. All right, the Stamp Act was soon enough repealed within just a couple short years here. And repealed just means it was pulled back. It was peeled back, right? In 1766 due to colonial boycotts. But much more was coming. And so what this did is this kind of inspired the colonists. If we boycott and we resist, we kind of get our way. So we see something starting to unfold here. The British were still deeply in debt and they still needed this money. So now you have the Townshend Acts. This is a series of taxes on glass, lead, paper, paint, and tea. We remember this one. So this was in 1767. So just a year later, these caused boycotts and riots. And again, more united resistance against this British Empire, right? So soon enough, you have the Boston Massacre. 5 colonists were killed in the city of Boston as they were rioting against these British soldiers. Thanks to Paul Revere, this got spread, and many others, throughout the colonists as a massacre of unarmed, which was kind of true, colonists in Boston. So this, again, really riled up these colonists in uniting against the British. Tensions ran high after the Boston Massacre, as you can imagine, throughout the colonies, and a sense of unification was growing as many colonies felt mistreated and united in their hatred of the British government. You see that emblem at the top right was printed in newspapers there. Join or die. They wanted to all start to unite. So Sons of Liberty were formed in Boston. It was a group joining to fight the taxes and resist against the British rule. Men like Samuel Adams, John Hancock, Patrick Henry, and Paul Revere were all included in this group. Boston Tea Party. This is where the Sons of Liberty, dressed as Native Americans, dumped a shipment of tea into the Boston harbor as protest of these taxes. So you can see that tensions are escalating. They're dumping valuable tea, about $1 million worth of tea in today's money, into the Boston harbor. Well, at this point, this infuriated the British government. So they enacted the Coercive Acts, which is a rules and regulations placed on Massachusetts colonists to punish them for the Boston Tea Party. It included closing the Boston harbor, so no ships could come in and out, so that ruined them economically, limiting town meetings. They made administrators immune to criminal justice, so they couldn't punish the British leaders. They had the Quartering Act, which meant that the British soldiers, which came in droves after this to rule in the city, were now allowed to stay in the homes of these colonial citizens. They obviously didn't like that. And the colonists began to call these acts not the coercive acts, they called them the intolerable acts. So around this time, the First Continental Congress was formed. It was a group of representatives from across the colonies who met in order to make plans to reconcile or resist against the British. And what they did at the First Continental Congress is they formed the first militias, small groups of farmers and local people who started to band together to form the Minutemen, which is a group of people ready to fight at a minute's notice against this British overwhelming rule, right? And the idea of no taxation without representation was born. This was the cry of the colonists saying that they had no vote in Parliament, which they didn't, and it was unfair to be taxed if they didn't have a vote. All right, let's move on into some of the practice questions. As always, press pause right after I read the question so you have time to come up with your answer before I give you the final correct answer. Here we go. Which of these is a grievance from the Declaration of Independence? Press pause. Here's your answer. Colonists were forced to quarter troops in their homes. We didn't like that, and that was part of us eventually declaring our independence from Great Britain. All right, next question. Cause. Parliament passed the Stamp Act of 1765. Immediate effect. Which of the following best completes the diagram? You press pause. Here's your answer. Colonists organized boycotts of British goods. They passed the Stamp Act. The Americans begin to boycott those products. All right, you have the Sugar Act, the Quartering Act, the Stamp Act. These acts contributed to the start of the Revolutionary War by, press pause, here's your answer. They contributed to the start of the Revolutionary War by angering colonists who believed that their civil liberties had been violated. We don't have the ability to vote, so why should we be taxed? Again, no taxation without representation, please. Here we go. Parliament passes the Tea Act of 1773. Colonists dump tea into Boston Harbor. And then, which of these completes this graphic organizer? Press pause. Here's your answer. Parliament passes the Intolerable Acts. Remember, the Intolerable Acts were viewed as intolerable. We cannot tolerate this by the American colonists because those Intolerable Acts were meant to punish the colonists for dumping all that tea in the harbor and other things. Here we go. Which excerpt from the Declaration of Independence best explains why colonists were unhappy about their lack of representation in the British Parliament? You press pause. Here's your answer. For imposing taxes on us without our consent. Don't tax us without letting us be represented. All right, guys, that is the end of today's lesson. Again, watch all the videos that you can, take notes, and do as much prep as you can, and you're going to get more and more confident and more capable as you go. Thank you for spending the time to watch this entire video. Have a good day.